Good evening, everyone. I'm Trish Triumph Sullivan, and I'm the proprietor of Downtown Book and Sound. And for Star Trek Day, you know what, I'm dressed up with my Star Trek uniform because I'm in command and peace, live long and prosper. We're here tonight to welcome author Nina Simon and her new book. If I can make it go, there we go. Mother-Daughter Murder Night. And I've got to tell you, it is a great read. I wasn't able to figure out the mystery until the end, and because she told us. So I think you'll enjoy it. We're going to welcome her tonight and have a few questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think we're going to do a brief reading to start.
Yeah. And thank you for being here. Thank you, Trish, and Downtown Book and Sound for hosting. So Mother-Daughter Murder Night is a big-hearted mystery. It's about 3 generations of women, a grandma, a single mom, and a teenage girl who have to work together to solve a murder right here in Monterey County in Elkhorn Slough. And this book is as much a family drama about these 3 women learning to negotiate their relationships as it is a murder mystery. And hopefully, whether you're somebody who loves a twisty mystery or whether you're somebody who loves a heartwarming family story, there's something in here for you. And so I thought just to give you a quick sense of the 3 women at the center of the story, I would read just 2 small passages, one with the mother and grandmother, Beth and Lana, and one with the granddaughter, Jack. So in the very beginning of the book, Lana, who is this tough as nails LA businesswoman, gets cancer and is, really struggling for the first time in a long time. And she calls her daughter to negotiate what's going to happen next. Her daughter has been living up here in Monterey County for 15 years, and they've been mostly estranged for that time. So this is Lana speaking. Beth, listen to me. They're telling me I've got tumors, lots of them in my brain, that I need surgery right away. But you should see the shoes this doctor is wearing. I mean, how can he expect anyone to take him seriously? Beth's face froze in a half smile. Wait, slow down. Where are you? Are you okay? Besides being held hostage by a radiologist who can't be bothered to brush his own hair, I'm fine. I'm at City of Angels Hospital. They say I can't check myself out, that someone has to take care of me. I need to get to a better facility, one with real doctors in decent suits. So the non-question hung in the air. If Lana had ever asked for Beth's help before, she couldn't remember it. Demanded her attention? Sure. Assumed her acquiescence? Constantly. But needed her help? Valued her expertise? If Beth weren't so worried, she'd mark the day on the calendar with a gold star. Ma, of course I'll come. So then they're negotiating some about where this should happen and to do it at Stanford. And so I'm just dropping down a little bit. Lana's voice shot back through the phone. Stanford, fine, but I'm staying in a hotel. Ma, you can't be alone while you're recovering from brain surgery. I hardly think I'll recover in a shack that's about to fall into a mud pit. Beth closed her eyes and resisted the urge to throw the phone. It's not your condo. It's not LA, but it's nice, I promise. There was a long pause during which Beth presumed Lana was contemplating the many ways her daughter's shabby house and backwater town fell short of her minimum requirements. So I think you can just get a sense there that Lana is this very urban, tough cookie. Beth, who's a nurse, is a caregiver. She has moved herself up to Elkhorn Slough in North Monterey County. She loves Monterey County and she loves living rural, but her mother is very much not up for the program. But her mother's forced to move up. I loved writing about Elkhorn Slough. I'll just read a little bit about that and then take you to Jack. This is when they're driving north from Los Angeles to the Monterey Bay. Lana shut her eyes at the first vineyards, and Beth drove on in silence, watching the rolling hills give way to the inky Monterey Bay. Even in the dark, the ocean made itself known, waves roaring onto rocks, spraying salt and mist over the bridge that separated sea from strawberry fields. Beth's house was perched between ocean and farmland, on a tiny strip of gravel and sand above Elkhorn Slough. Beth loved the way the wetlands shifted with the tides, rising and falling like a lover's breath below her house. When she first moved in 15 years ago, she'd seen Elkhorn as a temporary refuge, but she'd grown to relish its foggy mornings and wild treasures, soft where Los Angeles was hard, scruffy where the city was slick. You know, as somebody who's lived in the Monterey Bay for 16 years, I loved getting to write about this beautiful place And I really see Elkhorn Slough as a place that is both peaceful and natural and wild, but also spooky and industrial. And I feel like it's those contrasts that make it a really great place for a murder. And so the last thing I'll shortly read,
Keep that in mind.
exactly, is right after a dead body is found. And this is featuring the third Rubicon. So this is a 3-generation story. You have Lana, the grandma, Beth, the mom, and then Jack, who is the teenager. And so Jack is a kayak tour guide, and this is right after she finds a dead body on one of the tours she's doing, right in the beginning of the book. Jack led the group back to the kayak shack in a ragged line, her paddle churning through the water like a quiet, determined dishwasher. The tour group passed under the highway and across the chopped-up ocean. News spread from boat to boat in whispers and heads whipping around to look back, as if to accuse the slough of ruining their day. The boats approached the shore. Travis was on the boat launch ramp, waving his arms like a girl at a drag race, too smiley by a mile, and Jack realized she hadn't called or told anyone at the kayak shack what had happened. As far as everyone at the marina was concerned, this was just another group of tourists to unload. She shot a glare at Travis, who was trying to tease a smile from the older woman along with her paddle. He didn't get it. Jack hauled her kayak up and stomped over to him. Travis, you're not going to believe this. What's up? We found a body, a dead person in the slough. Can you get Paul on the phone and tell him to come down here? I'll close the group out. Whoa, are you? Just go. Now, please. Jack's grandma had told her it was always good to give men simple instructions in complicated situations. Thank you. So that just gives you a little taste of these 3 women and this setting and the story and the murder mystery that they embark on.
So I have a question for you. Have you done any writing before this? Is this your first time that you did any fiction writing, or?
Yeah, it's my first time writing fiction, but writing has always been part of my life. I'm a very left and right brain person. So when I was in college, I was studying electrical engineering by day, and then I was doing slam poetry at night, which is, by the way, a great training for being rejected when you're writing a book, because once you've been in a bar with drunk people holding up scorecards while you recite your original poetry, like nothing can be as scary as that. And then after poetry, I spent about 20 years working in museums and writing on the side about museums, about how we can make them more inclusive and welcoming places. I was blogging. I wrote a couple of nonfiction books, but I'd only really come to fiction as a reader before I wrote this book.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
And her nonfiction books are like the most important museum books that museum professionals read, like wildly successful.
So when did you write those?
I did the first one, which was called The Participatory Museum. It came out in 2012, so about 10 years ago. And then the second one, The Art of Relevance, came out in 2017. And and I love doing those, but it was very different. I was, it was in a small industry, so I could self-publish and knew people and knew how to, make it a book that would be used as a textbook and things like that. It's very different to work with a real publisher and go through the whole editing process that Mother, Daughter, Murder Night went through. Yeah.
So questions, folks?
Yeah.
Any questions?
How did you find the editing process? Because I think that would be a difficult thing for an author, particularly on your first book like that.
Yeah, I loved it. I'm the kind of person who I love to learn. I love to get feedback. And because I had no creative writing background, I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing. And in a lot of ways, I felt like I got, a crash course, in creative writing when I was working with my agent and later with my editor, William Morrow, to make the book better, because they taught me so much about that I couldn't just glean from reading craft books or just reading, and which I did a ton of as I was trying to study my favorite mysteries to write this book. So for me, I'm the kind of person who's like, bring it on, more feedback. I would also say that because I'm new to doing this, when I was given an editorial note that I didn't understand, there were only a couple of times where I had a strong reaction. Most of the time, if I didn't understand it, I was like, well, I want to see where this takes me, and maybe it'll take me somewhere that makes the book better. And often notes I didn't understand ended up making the book better.
And just because we have lots of writers in the area
Yeah.
who don't get their stuff edited. How did you make those connections?
I cold queried for ages. So, I wrote this book for a very idiosyncratic reason, which was my mom got sick. I had to quit my job so I could care for her. She and I both always loved murder mysteries. And so while she was sick, we started rereading some old favorites. And then one day I just turned to her and I was like, well, maybe I should try writing one of these and I'll make the detective somebody who's kind of like you. And so, there's this tough LA grandma who is the star of the show. And my mom is much nicer than the character in this book. But you need something outrageous for fiction. And so because of that, and I was writing it really, I would write every scene thinking, will this make my mom smile? And I was, everything I wrote, I would write on her bed while she was sleeping. When she woke up, I'd pass the laptop over and she'd read while I went and made her breakfast. So I wasn't really thinking about it like it was going to be a book like this. I wasn't thinking it was going to be published. I thought, oh, I'm doing this special thing with my mom. And so then she started getting better and I found I was loving this. And, I was debating about getting another job because while my mom was doing better, I knew if she got into a danger zone again, I would want to be able to be with her. And so I thought, okay, I have a little money saved up. My husband's supporting me in doing this. Let me see what I can do with this book. And so let me see if we could take it from being this very personal, intimate project and if it could become something bigger. So, I just, I didn't have any connections in the publishing world, so I just sent out cold query letters to agents, and actually Enid, who's here tonight, was going through the process at kind of the same time. So we would like chat with each other about, oh, I got rejected. Actually, Enid gave me very good advice because I remember bummed out by one of the rejections I got, and because Enid had been in the art world, she was like, don't let some 26-year-old agent in New York like crush your dream. What do they know? And so I just did a lot of cold emailing, and I got lucky and signed with a great agent who really knows what she's doing, and she sort of took it from there in terms of guiding and challenging me to make the book better so that then she could sell it to a great publisher.
Plus, you already have this slam poetry rejection.
Exactly.
Experience,
Yeah. Well, it's funny
prepared.
that there were a lot of people who were like, oh, well, you wrote these museum books. Of course they're going to like that and care about it. No, they don't care at all about that. Yeah, exactly. So, but I feel very blessed about the experience I've had with publishing so far. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what other question?
Yeah.
Oh, I was just wondering, are you working on a new project?
Yeah, I'm working on a couple. So, so this book we sold as a one-book deal. So that gives me some flexibility. I'm not under contract with a deadline. And I think that for me, I'm very torn about whether I'd want to write more books with these characters or not. I mean, I love them and I love this region and I feel like there are more interesting stories to tell. But I also feel like I wrote this book for such an idiosyncratic reason for my mom that I'm not sure if I want to do more with that or not. And so, but the thing that I love doing was writing a group of strong women in a crime fiction situation. So kind of where I'm at now is like, there will definitely be strong women. There will definitely be dead bodies, but where they are or what the situation is. I've written the first half of 2 different books, but I think that we're just kind of, I'm focusing right now on promotion, and we want to sort of see how this book does and really what people respond to kind of have a sense of, not to guide what should I write, but more like what's the project that will make sense next. I mean, it's a great blessing to have this Reese Book Club pick. And it also means that there's an amazing, like most new authors, you don't get this kind of attention on your first book. So I feel like I want to, take seriously like the gift of that bigger audience. And really, I want to hear from readers about what's resonating from them. And so that, everybody who's involved in this publishing machine can make an informed decision about which book project makes the most sense to take forward. So I admit I've had some frustration and sadness that like things I'd be like, this is book 2. And then somebody would be like, that's not book 2. And then, so I've been told many times now, maybe that'll be book 3, but nobody yet has said, oh yeah, that's book 2. So I'm still kind of getting there. Yeah, it's exciting. And I definitely feel like what's happened with this book has created the kind of foundation just for stability for my family that I can focus on writing and caregiving and not feel like I need to take another job for the next couple of years. So that feels like a huge blessing. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you explore many of the locations around the slough?
Oh yeah. I mean, I spent so much time paddleboard. I feel like paddleboarding is one of those things that like during the pandemic, everybody got a blow up paddleboard and I was one of those people. And I love going paddleboarding at the slough. And I did a lot of it with my daughter, Rocket, who at the time was like 7 or 8. She would just sort of perch on the front of the paddleboard and we'd be going through Elkhorn Slough. And then she'd be like, look at that falling down shack. You should kill somebody over there, you know? And it was like very cute and very creepy. And, but I feel like Elkhorn Slough, every time I'm there, there's like something different that surprises me. I was just there a couple weeks ago and the pelicans were out in force. You know, sometimes it's jellyfish, sometimes there's no jellyfish. And I just feel like there are a lot of surprises in the slough and so it's both a place that for me is deeply calming, but also like very mysterious and filled with, you know, kind of strange dangers. And I just love it. There are a lot of this places in the book are real. I fictionalized the hospitals because I basically fictionalized anything I was either not being entirely nice about or where I felt like, you know, I didn't want to get anybody in trouble about anything. So the core mystery in the story is about land conservation. And so I made up this fake land trust because I wanted to play with the idea of a nonprofit that is maybe a little shady. And I love the nonprofits in our community. I love the land conservationists, but so I had to fictionalize anything that was going to, get a little questionable. Yeah.
So the hole in the wall restaurant that has the shrimp burritos.
Oh gosh. Well, yeah, great.
We all want to know.
You know what I was thinking about really was La Perla de la Pacifica in Watsonville, which is an incredible seafood place. Have you guys ever been there? Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, it's a really good place.
it's kind of the best. And but that date, or it's not even a date anymore. That dinner, at one point that was a date, and then it's not a date anymore. But that dinner, I rewrote 5 different times. One time they were in Monterey in the city. One time they were in Watsonville at La Perla. They eventually ended up in Salinas. But it's just like that was a scene that got reworked so many times that it ended up a little bit of this mashup of La Perla and Salinas. But there are, I feel like in Salinas, some places where there are these beautiful, hole in the wall that then opens up to a really beautiful outdoor space. And so I felt like I was holding that even as I was thinking about the food at La Perla. I was also thinking a little bit of Friolito in Watson. I spend more time eating in Watsonville than I have here, but that could change.
Now, do you go to Kelly's Books ever in Watsonville?
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, it's
Did
great.
you hear the sad news? Kelly's Books is closing.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
I am too. I was like, had tears. I was crying about it. I was like, oh no, Kelly, you can't close that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need more bookstores.
We
Not
do
less.
need more bookstores. Absolutely. Yeah.
Really sorry to hear that. Well, I'm glad that you go there anyway.
Yeah. I live in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and I actually very deliberately didn't want to set the book in Santa Cruz because I felt like, these are people I grocery shop with every day. I was like, okay, if I come down to North Monterey County, I still feel like I know the area, but I don't feel like I'm upsetting my neighbor. Although the mystery takes place at a ranch, on the north side of the slough. And I was telling a friend who works at UC Santa Cruz about that. And I was talking about this imaginary ranch. And he's like, oh, you mean Wally's ranch? I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, there's a guy named Wally who manages the ranch that is right where you're talking about.
I thought that's what you were writing about.
Well, and so then he calls Wally, and 2 weeks later, I'm out on that ranch with Wally. We're like horseback riding around. And so it did become, and the historic documents in the book are real from that real ranch. But I did not know. And I did not tell Wally who gets murdered or what the situation is, because he was so nice to me. He taught me so much about the birds and plants, and I just didn't have the heart to talk to him about every terrible thing that might happen on this beautiful land where he thinks so. But he liked the book, so I chickened out. I just gave him the book and didn't say anything.
Yeah.
So yeah.
There's that dairy farm there too.
Yeah, the dairy farm's on the south side of the slough. Yeah. No, it's such a beautiful place. And I'm kind of hoping, especially with the Reese book club thing, that it'll bring more attention to the slough. I mean, just last night I was in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I was in San Francisco the night before that. And, a lot of people have kind of visited the slough for a minute when they were driving Highway 1 or something. And I think it's an incredible place and would love to see people be thinking about it the way they think about other natural treasures in our area.
It also is a beautiful train ride through the slough. So anyone who goes on Amtrak heading
Right.
north, it goes right through the slough and not where any roads go.
Yeah.
So you literally have water on both
Right.
sides,
It's incredible.
and you have otters and all this wildlife like frolicking like right there. Like you're looking out, and you're like, oh my God, that's an otter. It's great. If you haven't, you did?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you haven't done the train, it's very inexpensive and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it. It's so fun because you can get up and walk around if
Sure.
you want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's great. You're not stuck in your seat the whole time. It's really cool.
Yeah.
So
So
if people wanted to give feedback or
Yeah.
likes and all, what's the best way to reach them?
Well, I would love to hear from people who've read the book because, this is my first novel. It's something that's very close to my heart. And so the best way to reach me is, I'm at ninaksimon.com and I'm basically Nina K. Simon on any social media platform. And these days, especially because Reese's Book Club is rooted on Instagram, I've been spending a lot more time on Instagram, but you can sort of find me in any of those places. And I am really eager and curious to hear from people who read the book. I'm so curious. I love asking people which of the 3 Rubicon women they identify with most because I feel like every reader has a different one. And sometimes it's about where they fall kind of generationally. But sometimes I just talked to a lady who was 82 in Phoenix yesterday, and she was like, I'm a Jack. I'm an explorer. Jack is the 15-year-old character. And we all have these different people in our hearts, I feel like, in different ways. So, yeah, I would love to hear from, I guess if you hate the book, I don't know that I want to hear about it, but if you have a question or if there's something you love about it or something that speaks to you, I'd love to hear from folks about that.
I can't imagine anyone hating your book. It's a really good read.
Thank you.
It really is. So if you haven't read it, do.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, and as a debut novelist, it's like everybody who reads the book, who tells a friend, or in this case, tells a mom or somebody about it, putting a review on Amazon, even if you never shop there, which you should be shopping places like here, it really makes a difference for authors in terms of people having any idea that these little books are out there and a world of so many books. And thank goodness we live in a world of so many books, but it is hard as a new author sometimes to have your voice be heard.
And I think you can put reviews on Goodreads.com and also on Bookshop.org.
Yep.
You can put reviews up.
Yep.
And Bookshop.org supports independent booksellers.
Yep.
And this book is available on Bookshop.org.
Yeah. And you can buy it to support Downtown Book and Sound.
You can, and any purchase on Bookshop.org supports independent booksellers around the nation and around the world too. So even in Spain and the UK, their Bookshop.org's over there too. So.
And the book is going to be, I think it's going to be in German and Spanish,
Wow.
Japanese, Turkish, Ukrainian. I don't know. We're still,
That's pretty
those
busy.
kinds of things are happening. Yeah, I know. It is kind of wild. When the Ukraine deal came through, I was like,
What?
The
who's
UK
time for this in the Ukraine to be able to publish a book in Ukrainian about a murder mystery in Monterey County? I mean, it's just wild. So I feel really blessed, and it's a wonderful mystery of how this all works. So, yeah.
Who picks what languages?
Well, what happens is in this case, and it can happen different for different books, but HarperCollins bought the world rights to the book. So they can then go out and sell the book into different markets. So there will be a publisher in Germany, a publisher in Spain and Portugal, a publisher in the Ukraine who they have made a deal with. And that's part of how the whole, and I guess there are some books where they might sell only the North American rights or only the print rights, but not the audiobook rights or things like that. And so it can work in different ways. I'm still learning about this business. Katie probably knows a lot more about how it works, but it's.
Are you reading your own audiobook?
I'm not. No, I kind of was interested in it, but I feel like these days audiobooks are so popular, and the people who listen to them, there's such an art to what kind of narration they're expecting. And fortunately, we were able to work with this great narrator, Jane Oppenheimer, who has a following of her own. So there are some people who are like, oh my God, I listen to every book Jane does, and so that kind of thing was also, I felt like, oh, there's another way for the book to get out. And actually I get to meet Jane next week. I'm doing an event in LA, and she just like messaged me on Instagram. She's like, I'm going to come to your event. And so I think I'm going to ask her when we're there, like, hey, will you read a little bit? Because I think she did a great job. Right. You've been listening to it, right? Yeah. Yeah. I think she really did.
I'll have to have a listen then too.
Oh yeah. I think it's pretty great. Yeah.
It's already
But
available.
you mentioned that
The audiobook, yes.
Yeah, we finished it. We read it, and
you read it aloud to each other.
yes, yeah, because that's kind of a tradition in our household is,
Nice.
is that instead of like laying in bed watching TV at night, we read a book.
That's awesome.
That's
And
wonderful.
so, but sometimes I do put on a book on Libro.fm. So a book on, an audio book basically.
Yeah.
Because it's better to fall asleep to that than the TV.
That's true. Yeah.
We get bedtime stories. What a treat, right?
Yeah, it really is.
And it was a great bedtime story.
Good.
I'm just gonna.
You're very brave.
Well, honestly, like I couldn't figure out who the
killer.
was until you told us. So that was pretty exciting, and it was a really good relationship book as well. So thank you for sharing like the whole story behind that.
Yeah,
We
of
really
course.
appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm somebody who, I wrote this to be a source of entertainment and joy and comfort for us. And I'm also, as a reader, when I was younger, there was a time when I was like, bring on the cut up, the serial killers and the, weird dead body stuff. That's not who I am anymore. And while there are dead bodies in here, it's much more of a warm-hearted mystery where, kind of this idea that, and it's funny, right, that murder can be a source of comfort. But I do think that when something terrible happens and then people are able to thoughtfully solve it and to kind of heal the social fabric, like that's a form of comfort, especially when we were dealing with, an illness that, you can't control, to have that kind of security of, okay, but in the book they can figure it out together.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, it's community building and in a very like personal way.
I think that's right. Yeah. And certainly for me, my experience of the care journey with my mom brought us together in a way that we hadn't imagined. And it's very different in this book, but there is a journey that these mothers and daughters are going on as well. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you all so much.
Do
for
we have any
coming
other
out.
questions before we go?
Actually,
Oh,
you said you weren't too sure when you were writing it, right? That was going to be a novel.
Yeah.
So by the time you figured out, how long did it take you to write?
Well, it took me about 6 months to write the full first draft. And then I spent about 3 months kind of doing a self-edit and getting some friends and people I knew to read it and give me some feedback. And then I really decided, okay, let me try and get an agent and let me try and enter the publishing machine. And I actually got some really good advice right before I did that. Somebody said to me, who had been in this world in the past, he said, he said, it's great that you loved writing this. You may love the publishing journey, or that may be the thing that sours you on this and that you hate. And he said, just be attentive to like what steps along this journey do you love? And you can always decide, this was just a project for me, or this was just for my mom, or I want to go all the way, or I'm willing to make these edits and these changes. For example, I did not title this book, and I love this title, but this was a title created by my agent. The cover was designed by my publisher. They showed it to me. They asked me what I thought, but I don't know that they would have made changes if I had material feedback. I sort of decided, okay, I'm ready to make this deal and see what this is like to hand the thing that I cared about to somebody who's going to now turn it into a product. And I'm proud of this product. I'm proud of how we worked together on it, but I don't have any illusions about the fact that the like intimate creative journey I went on personally with my mom, that was a different project than the project that took that and turned it into a book like this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a really great explanation.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Did you have a question?
Yeah. What was like your most difficult or your most challenging part of the writing process? Was it like, did you ever experience writer's block? And if you did,
Yeah.
how did you overcome it?
Yeah. I didn't experience writer's block. What I experienced was sometimes there was an edit that I knew was right, but I felt like I was taking something that was flawed but looked pretty good, and I had to break it apart and make it pretty bad to be able to build it back in the right direction. So, for example, one of the main characters, she just wasn't. Her personality wasn't as rich as the other main characters. And I kept trying different versions, but it's almost like doing a lobotomy on somebody, because this character is written through the whole book and you're like, okay, I'm going to make her more, strong in this particular way. Okay, what's every scene she's in and how would I change her dialogue in this exact conversation so that she shows up differently? And wait, did I remember to do that in this other scene? And so I feel like the sort of jigsaw puzzle of the edit, and particularly when it was like, I know this thing has to change. It was somewhat easy when it was like, okay, so for example, the ending and the way that the murderer gets unveiled, that changed completely. But that was easy because it was like, okay, I had this ending, I put that aside, I write a new ending. What was much harder was when it was like, oh, this character or this relationship between these two characters has to be tweaked, and you have to carry it through the whole already 350-page book. And so for me, the writing, like in the beginning, because I'd spent decades being somebody who was comfortable writing and who saw writing as a pleasure, the initial drafting felt mostly like a pleasure. It was the editing, and particular some of these like pivot the whole book edits that were really challenging. And I would just, I had to do this about 4 times for different things. And at least I and my husband became aware, oh yeah, this is happening again. And I'd just be like, it's so terrible. It was okay. But I mean, it's like if you had a wall where you did the drywall wrong. So it's like, it looks good on the surface, but it's wrong underneath. But then you take it back down to the studs and you're just like, shit, now there's just drywall everywhere. I'm like, what if it doesn't go up better the new way, And so that was the hardest part for me. Yeah. And also, this is a little morbid, and my mom's doing well now, but I was so afraid she was going to die before the book came out. And so every time they told me I needed to do another edit, on the one hand, I was excited for like, oh yeah, I see how that could be better. But I was just always scared that she wasn't going to see to the ending. And I feel so lucky that my mom's doing pretty well. We did a launch on Tuesday together. We're going to do an event in LA next week. And we've just been really getting to celebrate this book together. And that's been really sweet.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yay for moms.
Yay for mom, absolutely. Well, that's really good news. I'm really glad that kind of gelled up for you.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, that's a happy ending, really.
It really is. And I think, it
Your
really
mom
is.
is so proud of you.
Yeah. She's very nervous though and she already, that people are going to think she's exactly like this character. And she's already getting emails from people like who she went to college with who are like, I'm reading your daughter's book and I always thought you were quite nice, but but to my mom's credit, she's like, well, did you read the dedication? My daughter loves me. And by the way, this is fiction. But it's been
That's
really
awesome.
sweet for us. Yeah. Well, it's so sweet to get to have this conversation with y'all. And thank you so much, Trish, for inviting me and putting this on.
Nina, thank you for coming tonight.
Yeah.
We're like stoked to have to support our local authors and especially when books take place locally and it's a local author, it's like such a blessing to be able to host because I can tell anyone, not only is it a really good read, but you can discover all kinds of local like treasures here.
Yeah.
That you wrote about that now people can go explore.
Yeah.
Which is great. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Absolutely.
And thank you everyone for coming
Yeah,
tonight.
thank
We really
you.
appreciate everyone being here. And I just want to tell the audience that's going to watch that either is watching online right now or who sees this later, because this will be on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook kind of permanently, that you can buy the book here locally at Downtown Book and Sound, but you can also get it on bookshop.org and in many other independent booksellers around the nation and around the world. And I encourage everyone to please shop on bookshop.org or independently owned bookstores, because that's what supports community and local authors like Nina. So thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you for shopping outside the box, everyone who's here. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming.
I'm going to close out because my phaser is only on stun for Star Trek Day. So thanks everyone for joining us. We'll see you next time.